Hi guys. Thank you for bearing with me through this evening. Uh, this has been an interesting experience. But let's do some Q&A. What do you guys think about Antichamber? I'm really curious if everybody in the chat has played it already. Or watched day 9 play it or something like that. If like this is only new to me, or if there are people who are also experiencing this for the first time. So chime in on chat. I'm curious about how that breaks down. Okay. Thoughts on wall posters. They read like hints, but evidently are just affirmations and the solutions that you just solved. I'm torn. I dislike them as they feel like hints that I could have used, but quite like the reward feeling they give for being smart. I'm less torn. I'm not sure I'm parsing the second half of that sentence exactly right, but I'm less torn about them. I'm kind of a big fan, and I think you're right. It's hard for me to tell. Like, I've definitely come to some places from multiple directions, and the assumption that I was making is that that was a thing that I could do. There are hints on either side of a puzzle because I could approach it from either direction for the first time. I still kind of think that's true, at least in some places, because I seem to have approached the same puzzle from multiple directions, or the same location from multiple directions. Now, it could be that you're pretty much always going to hit a puzzle from the same side. Like, every player is going to have pretty much the same experience, and they're always going to encounter puzzles for the first time from the same direction. I don't have enough of a sense of the whole space in my head to really make a determination about that. Either way, like, it's clear that the game is designed for one or the other, either to be non-linearly accessible or to be a very designed path. It's just not clear which is the case. So assuming for the moment that everybody is going to have the same play experience that I have. Everybody's going to encounter the posters that I encounter in the order that I encounter them. I like them a lot. You're right. They act more as affirmations than as hints. And that's fine. I like those affirmations. They make me feel smart. They make me feel like I figured out something, not just like a puzzle. They seem to put the puzzle that I solved into a larger context, right? So I'm trying to think of what the aphorism on one of them specifically was, but they're saying things like sometimes you just need to push on through, or persistence can be key, or things aren't always what they seem. And I have just actually demonstrated an example of that being true, which makes it feel like really cool. But it also makes my solution to a puzzle where I just pushed a wall until I could go further, makes that feel like it's something larger than just solving a puzzle in Antichamber. So I like them as affirmations. I have liked them as hints. The ones that I have seen that have gotten me into a mindset or hinted to me the type of solution that I should be looking for, I'm a big fan of those too. I like them because they do not spell out the solutions, at least in my mind. That's not how I see them, but they have so far been very effective in getting me to a place where I can come up with a solution. How much progress do you think you've made so far? Oh, God, that's a good question. So I'm coming into this with the context of I know that this is a game that lasts from between 5 and 8 hours, and I've been playing it for, I guess, about an hour and a half. And so I think that I'm probably, you know, a third to a quarter of the way through. If I didn't know, like, if I didn't have an outside sense of how long it was, um, then I would think I was probably a little further than that. I would guess that I don't know, I want to say halfway or maybe over halfway. Uh, because I've built out a map that has a lot of connections and not a ton of like ways still to go. I mean, there's only 4 or 5 rooms I think that have passages branching off of them that look like ways that I still have to explore. So from that perspective, I don't know. It feels like I've accomplished a big chunk of it. Now that said, there are definitely systems that I've observed that I have no idea what they're doing or how they work. I also think that it's interesting that I got to the end, the doorway that says exit, and that was that was a trick. That was a false positive. I feel like I don't know. I feel like the game stumbled just a little bit there because now I no longer have a clear goal. The Antichamber was doing really, really well for me with a sense of what is it that I'm trying to accomplish. Well, I'm exploring the space. I'm trying to solve these puzzles so that I can get to the next room so that I can get to this exit. I can reach that door that I can't reach from the beginning. And now there's still, I think, there's still another door near the leap of faith. I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look. There may be another door somewhere around that seems like a ending door. Maybe I already went through it. But the game like kept my interest for a while, just exploring and solving puzzles, and then it gave me this hint that like there's a gun thing that I'm going to be able to get, and that kept me going for a while. And then I got it, and I had a whole new set of mechanics to explore, and I did that, and that was exciting for a while. And then I got to the thing that I thought was my goal, and it turns out that's not really my goal, and now I don't know what my goal is, and so I'm just a little bit confused. That said, I think the thing to do next is the game gave me a hint that sometimes things happen whether you're paying attention to them or not. The one, the birthday cake symbol. And one thing that I saw was like that black shape polygon that drifted through space at one point near where the cube gun is. I don't know if that was on a timer or if that triggered because I walked by there for the first time. I went by there subsequently and there was never anything there. Maybe if I get to that spot sooner, I can actually like get over to where the gun is before that thing goes by, and then I can follow it. Or maybe there are other things that like if I get too far enough through the game fast enough, I'll see different things than I do now after the timer has already ticked down. So I think that's probably the next place for me to go. Dexo wants to ask my opinion on the elevator issue, but doesn't know how to phrase the question. I'm not sure I can answer that question without it being phrased. The elevator issue. I don't think I had an issue with the elevators. If you can clarify that, then well, yeah, I don't know. As a game designer, which aspects or concepts of this game stand out the most from your experience so far? That's a good question. So, as I mentioned, sort of before we hit all of our technical problems, the introduction to the game I think is unusual and interesting, especially the fact that it starts the timer on you before before you don't have a chance to do anything. You're looking at the settings menu and it has already started this timer on you. That's a really, really interesting choice. The fact that all of that is in a room, in a physical space, that means that there's no transitional moment where you're agreeing that you're going to start playing the game. It just drops you into the game in a way that it's just it's different than our established pattern, right? Like culturally, we have decided that the way that you start a game is there's a menu and you hit play and then you're in the game. And this game very consciously defies that expectation, as it defies a lot of expectations. So then the other thing that stands out to me is it's got a beautiful, beautiful first 15 minutes. I mean, it's got probably longer than that. I would say the first half hour that I played, I just felt like it was on fire. It was very, very smooth, and I was totally in a flow state. The game was balanced just right for me, at least. I mean, it's possible that other people would get stuck on something in there, or would find it too easy. But it was just right for me. I was flying through it. I was encountering all of those puzzles, but not getting stuck on them. I was just sort of engaging with them and had a chance to experiment and then find the solution. And I love that. That felt really good. And then the hinting system, yeah, it's not 100% clear how it works, whether it's a lot of affirmations or if it's really actual real hints. I've also kind of got a theory that I don't know that it plays out, that it's the first you tend to hit a puzzle from one direction first, and the hint that it gives you is a more abstract or more subtle hint, and then if you don't get it, if you don't get through that puzzle, then you might encounter it from the other direction later, and then that hint is stronger. Because it seemed like the affirmations, the hints that we got on the other side of puzzles were sometimes better hints than the ones that we got on the front side. So I think that could be going on. There's a lot about that system which is just very subtle, that I'm not sure how it works yet. And as a designer, I'm very, very interested in sort of understanding how they placed all of those things, because they seem placed very well. And then also the map. I really like the map a lot. It's got a really, really smooth interaction design. It feels really good to interact with it. And it's also super useful, just as a way of organizing the game. For me as a player, this game could be ultra super confusing because it's all unreal space, and it's hard for me to map out a geometry. There's stuff that like teleports me seamlessly from one place to another, and being able to go back to the antechamber, so having that kind of like recall loop of you can go back to the antechamber whenever you want, and then you've got this map of all of the stuff that you've seen, and it's really remarkably easy to navigate, and it shows you where you were last, and it also shows you something else that I'm not 100% certain what that is. It might be where you last teleported to or something like that. Anyway, it's very nice, and the way that it feels to interact with it is super, super, super nice. Yeah. I'm not sure how much you know about this specifically, but do you think there's something about the visuals or movements that might be too hard visually? Apparently, I'm not the only one who this game brings into sim sickness territory. Yeah, so that doesn't shock me. I don't know a lot about sim sickness, and I don't usually get it. But I have friends and game designer friends who do, and have to be much more careful about it. I'm going to try to remember to ask about their experiences and the kinds of things that they've noticed really trigger that. I know that a lot of sort of wild camera movement can trigger it, and I think that frankly, I think that there's a sort of a like sense of space that I don't know. I'm speculating. And there are actually, I know some people who know a lot more than this about this than I do. There was somebody last year or the year before who did their master's thesis at USC on simulator sickness, who probably has a ton of research on this. But there's something that makes me feel like having a mental model of the space that you're viewing can be really important to having a sense of stability. And if that is disrupted, then that is one of the things that can potentially trigger sim sickness. And that can happen in a lot of games when you do like wild camera swings and even like moving in a direction other than where you're looking can be disorienting. This game is in a lot of places like very just naturally disorienting. The physics of the game, the optics of the game, the way that the game like is designed and rendered is designed to be disorienting. And so I can totally imagine that triggering simulator sickness in a lot of people. Honestly, the movements don't seem particularly different than a standard first-person shooter. So I don't know that there's anything about the movement specifically, but the fact that you're almost always inside of these contained hallways, constrained sort of spaces, that you're encouraged to look all over the place and to look at things close up, and then sort of back away and swing your gaze really wide. And then I would say the sharp contrasts of the color palette, I wouldn't be surprised if that also has some kind of a contributing effect. I don't know that for certain, and I don't know what kind of effect that might have, but this game does do a lot with not so much really sharp lines, but lots of very contrasting colors and like wild color palette. It uses a lot of like computer primary colors, so not real primary colors, but colors like teal and magenta that are like foundational colors for computer systems, but aren't actually really found in nature. Um, and so that I think can also create sort of a disorienting effect. How well do you think the game presents puzzles? As in, how well can you identify what is a puzzle and what isn't? How big of a space do you think the solution to a puzzle could involve? Would you say the game is a series of rooms with puzzles in them, or that the puzzle is trying to navigate the rooms? That's a really good question. So far, I feel like I've been able to identify puzzles pretty well. So far, I feel like the puzzles have been pretty well self-contained. That said, the game suggests to me that those puzzles can bleed a little bit further than where they appear to be. So, for example, I've gotten to a point where sometimes in order to solve a puzzle, I need these little cubes. And often, when that's the case, there is a source of little cubes nearby. But I'm not sure that it's always the case that there's a source of little cubes nearby. And sometimes I have built up a supply of little cubes and then gone around and used them other places. And that seems like something that the game wants me to do. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the puzzles started to sprawl more. And it could easily be that some of the puzzles that I haven't solved yet, which I identify as like closed doors, or, I mean, honestly, I really identify them on the map in the Antichamber you know, passages off of nodes that I haven't explored yet. So I could totally imagine that maybe even some of those puzzles involve more rooms than I'm sort of currently thinking about. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Would you say the game is a series of rooms with puzzles in them, or that the puzzle is trying to navigate the rooms? Well, it's a little bit of the second one. I mean, it's a little bit of both. It's certainly in the moment of it, like when you're encountering puzzles, it feels like rooms with puzzles in them. And by the way that they are titled on the map in the Antichamber, it sort of feels like rooms with puzzles in them. But I'm sticking with, unlike Portal, where it is very clearly rooms with puzzles in them. Here is a room and it has a puzzle or a series of puzzles contained entirely within it. And then the puzzle is to get to the passageway that leads you to the next room where there are more puzzles. I really feel like this is a game that is arranged around the puzzles in passageways. There are rooms or landmarks that you are traveling between, and the puzzles are between those rooms, which is slightly different than the puzzle is trying to navigate the rooms. It's more of just kind of a slight variation on rooms with puzzles in them, but I would also say, like, there's kind of a, you know, cube feel to this, especially when, like, you're dropped with no explanation into a, I got a crazy cat, into a room, and there's a glassed off panel and a door that says exit. That suggests to me that, like, I'm stuck here until I can figure out how to get out. You know, that suggests that the puzzle of the game is going to be figuring out how to get out, how to actually navigate through the space well enough that you can reach the exit, as opposed again to Portal, where you know, for the main part of that game, for the first half of that game, there's no there's no like linear progression question. There's no navigation between rooms. The rooms are just in order, in sequence, and you go from one to the next. Now that has kind of broken because I got to the exit, and the exit wasn't anything, or at least it appears not to be anything. You know, I don't want to trust my perception too much, but what are you doing? Good Lord. But yeah, you know, my guiding principle is still to go back to the map and look for things that I haven't explored yet, which I think is, you know, I'm trying to navigate the space, and once I have navigated the entire space, I will have solved it. Do you feel like the game is taking a risk by being so very non-linear and rather being built in loops? I feel that since you've come back to a lot of the same places, you might get the feeling that you don't need to go there anymore, even though you still haven't solved something. I actually, I don't agree with that sentiment. I think that it's actually kind of an important feature that the game is built in loops the way that it is, because it makes me try to. It helps me understand the space that I'm in, and it's like a fundamentally difficult to understand space. Like it's not a natural space. It is, let me say, a non-Euclidean space. So it's not natural for me to spatially map it in my mind, to hold a like spatial map of it, like a diagram, or like a, you know, like a structural diagram. But it is. I can, easier than that, I can recognize landmarks, and I can sort of remember that different passageways are paths between landmarks. My cat is like super crazy tonight. I don't know what the deal is. Yeah, so it helps me kind of map the space conceptually more than spatially, and especially when I go back to the Antichamber, all of those rooms are named, or all of those features are named, and so I can think of them in terms of their names and kind of the landmarks that they are, rather than trying to like remember how I go through. Now, your point that I will have to come back to some of those places, and they may feel like I'm done with them, but I am going to have to come back to them. I think that's valid, but honestly, my biggest worry is no, not my biggest worry. My strategy, my keystone strategy involves that map, involves the Antichamber, and the map makes it very clear where there are puzzles that I haven't solved yet. Yeah, in the absence of that, I would completely agree with you that that's a problem. That I'm gonna like, I'm gonna feel like this area is conquered once I've sort of gone through it and looped back around and gone through it again. Like that feels done. But when I can go to the map and I can see, oh no, there's another thing. There's another way that you have not gone from here. I feel like that's very clear, and so I like having those kinds of loops to help me, you know, keep track of the space that I'm in. My cat hates to be on camera. That's the problem. You know, I can occasionally get her to come over here and then lift her up so that she's on camera for a second, but then she scrambles away. Day 9 has like the most ridiculously relaxed cats. Like you can just hold them and they go limp like adorable little puppets, like stuffed animals. My cat is not that cat. My cat is very, very loving and cuddly and adorable, but she does not like to be picked up and held, and she will work against that if you try to do it. Okay. Any other questions? Feel free to ask other questions. I had some other thoughts, some things that I wanted to talk about, so I'm going to go to that now. So this is, like I said at the beginning, this is the first puzzle game that we've done on Play by Play, but all of the other games that we've played have had puzzles in them. So I'm curious, like I kind of just want to riff, I guess. These are questions for myself, so these are things that I haven't really thought about, but I guess I'm just going to riff on. If you guys have thoughts about it, post it in the chat, or if you really have thoughts about stuff, then come onto the forum and make a thread or something. So I just wanted to think through, how does this game compare to the other games that we've played, like Papoyo and the Stanley Parable. Papoyo is more of a stretch for me. I thought that there might be some similarities because that game has very explicit puzzles. You've gotten to a new area, and in order to progress, you need to solve this puzzle. But that's more of almost a Portal style. Antichamber doesn't feel like that to me, because it's so non-linear. It feels like there are lots of different directions you can go, and each of those sort of represents a puzzle. It feels more like the Stanley Parable in a lot of ways, in that it's got kind of a player cognition, I think. That's one of the things that I like about it, dropping us into the game and starting the timer before we're necessarily ready, showing us the configuration menu, the settings menu, within the game. There's something about that feels like not actually unfiltered. It's very filtered, it's very designed, but it's designed to look unfiltered. It's designed to be sort of showing you how the game works, or to disrupt your notion of what a game is supposed to look like, but not in a truly punk way, in a very, very designed way. And then also the tone of it, with these little iconographic hint things that have these weird aphorisms on them. It's not outright humorous the way that Stanley Parable was, but I feel like there's something tonally similar about them that it just reminds me of that. Yeah, again, Hotline Miami. Hotline Miami was very here is a room, and this room is kind of a puzzle that you have to solve in real time. It's almost like the opposite of Antichamber, at least so far. It's Antichamber is much less contained. It's much more sprawling. It's much more nonlinear, and the puzzles are much more deliberate and thoughtful. There's no action-oriented element to them. So then the other one, I guess, so Half-Life, I got nothing. Comparing it to Half-Life. It's a first-person game like Half-Life was. I need to sometimes walk slowly, use the crouch button, even though it doesn't crouch in this game, and I'm doing that better now than I did in Half-Life. But the other one is Grim Fandango. So Grim Fandango is more of a puzzle game. by its nature being an adventure game. And I just kind of wanna. I don't see like anything really obviously insightful to say about that. The nature of the puzzles is very different. I mean, these are obviously just very spatially oriented and occasionally. Well, some of them are kind of lateral thinking puzzles. Like the very first one, where with the blue and red stairways, where I had to turn around and go the third direction. That's kind of a lateral thinking puzzle in a way that I could imagine there being a puzzle in Grim Fandango, although quite frankly there hasn't been, and I don't really expect that there will be that kind of a thing. So somehow, and I'll have to think about this more because I don't have like a really articulate way to describe this, but I feel like the nature of the puzzles is kind of fundamentally different. Okay, a couple more questions from chat, and then I'm gonna go. Game seems quite happy to reward failures. Like at the start, it asks you to jump, knowing you will fall down. But it's not a bad thing, it's actually a good thing, as the game questions and inverts so many traditional game mechanics. Walking backwards, space being non-Euclidean, you got me to say it again. So it almost needs to reward failure by getting to a new area to keep you playing and not view failure as a bad thing. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I agree with it. One of the things that I would say about its deliberate failures is that they feel deliberate. There's no point in that, especially in that first, introductory moment. Which, okay, let's talk about that for just a minute, because the first 90 seconds of your game are so important for a number of reasons. One of them being, when you demo your game, most people will only play the first 90 seconds. And then when you distribute your game, there are a lot of people who will make up their minds in the first 90 seconds whether or not the game is worth continuing. I mean, obviously not everybody, but there's a good number of people. Like there's a substantial enough number of people that you have to worry about it. And then third, and I would say most importantly, because I tend not to care enough about commercialization of games, it sets the tone for your game. The first 90 seconds is going to tell your player what to expect going forward. So the first 90 seconds of this game, like we said, it drops you right into the middle of it. It establishes that it's going to do things differently, that it's going to play by its own rules. And then it gives you this sort of series of little tricky, really tricks, where it guides you very specifically in a direction. It gives you an instruction to do something. Jump, first of all, tells you that jumping is a mechanic in the game, and then also fools you into going a different direction, which tells you, first of all, that there are multiple directions that you can go. Like, you can explore multiple directions. It's not going to be just a linear game. And that, again, the game is going to continue to subvert your expectations of what a game should be. In kind of the same way as the Stanley Parable, right? So this is another connection to that, not really on the puzzle end, but on the way that the game engages back with the player. It seems very similar. And then you get to this puzzle of going up and going down. That does a couple things. One of them is demonstrates the way that this game is going to play with space in an unreal way. And it demonstrates it very clearly, very simply, in a way that you can totally wrap your head around, but really makes it clear that space is not behaving the way that it's supposed to. And then it asks you to solve a puzzle, which, almost by necessity, you are going to do the wrong thing a few times and then figure out, well, that's not working, and then turn around and do the right thing. Even maybe by accident, but you're still going to do it. Like, it's going to play out that way, which is going to tell you. I mean, it tells you even more about how the non-Euclidean space can work, but it also tells you that this is how you're going to need to engage your brain. I guess it's setting a tone for what the game is going to be. Anyway, I got off track from the actual question, which is really just more of an observation about how the game is treating those failures. I think that's all part of a very, very scripted, heavily designed, heavily play tested, very, very refined, smoothed out first introductory experience to the game that is extremely solid, and that kind of introducing you to false information and deliberately leading you into failure is setting a tone for the rest of the game. Question about a game called Not, which I have not heard of, but we'll look up at some point. In most games, you're not rewarded for failure, but this game does it because it needs you to question your preconceptions to progress. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree that failure, like that kind of, I don't know what to call it, designed failure, maybe, is handled much better in this game than, for example, the first couple hours of Kingdom Hearts, which we played on last Sunday in the Sunday Game Club, where there was a battle that you had to fight against somebody, and it was designed so that you would lose it, and it would play a cutscene afterwards, sort of showing the guy triumphing over you, just to set kind of like a plot point and a character point, which is fine from a plot and character standpoint, but it felt really weird for the game to do that. This game, when I fail in this game, first of all, the game is very gentle about it. It doesn't actually really feel like a failure. It feels like progress in a different direction, like the sign said. But because all of these landmark areas have branching paths off of them, it feels like I'm discovering that there are multiple paths and they're not all obvious. I might need to sort of work at getting to some of them. Yeah. Okay. So, scripted failure. I like the term scripted failure for that kind of a thing. Okay. So, I am. That's it. I'm going to sign off for tonight. Thank you guys so much for persevering with me. I am gonna investigate as well as I can the settings that I have in my my XSplit setup and see if I can get it to maybe stream at a lower resolution. I can investigate my my ISP too. I'm gonna see if I can do anything to prevent this from happening again. But yeah, I apologize and hope that you will continue to bear with me if I continue to have technical problems in the interim. Nonetheless, this was a lot of fun. This game is really super cool. I like it a lot. I'm excited to be playing it. I'm looking forward to the next bit of it, which I will play, I believe, on Saturday. That is my plan. Saturday at 6 Pacific time. So join us again then, and hopefully these videos will go up on YouTube somehow in the meantime. Also, come by the forum, undefinedbehavior.com/forum, and hang out with us there. Lots of interesting topics and conversation and information about, like I said, Sunday Game Club, which I believe is going to be happening again this week. 8 o'clock on Sunday. So yeah, there's tons of stuff. If you like games, there's so many games. It's really exciting. I find it really exciting. So thank you again, and have a good night, and I will see you next time. All right, bye.